Hello and welcome to On the Mic with Mike. Of course, I am Mike Jarvis, and I'm starting a new edition, a new series now, looking at what transpired during the recently held general election in Montserrat. We had a lot of conversations leading up to the election. Now we're looking back at it and at the same time looking forward. And one of the folks that I had with me looking at what was about to happen regarding the conduct of the election in Montserrat was the very engaging Mr. Gregory Saga Willock. Now, Greg is back here with me, and he is just back from Montserrat. He's back in the UK. Greg was very active in the election campaign on the platform of the team that ultimately became victorious. That's the United Alliance. Of course, we're going to talk about his experience, but also where does Montserrat go from here? Welcome back, Greg. How did it go for you? Well, I know how it went for you, but tell us a bit about the experience.
Any experience of Montserrat is something that will always be cherished and admired by me in terms of whatever role I can play in the overall development of Montserrat and how it moves forward and whose hands we put the country in at critical junctures. So what I would say to you is that it was really a pleasure of mine to be there, mingle, mix, and just share my perspective, be able to campaign with the United Alliance and to ensure that a government was in power. As you know, when I left here, I was hearing things like it's going to be a coalition government and it's going to be a mix-up story. And one of the things that when we were looking in, that we were sure of, this was going to be one of the most critical elections in Montserrat's history, and we needed to have a full government in charge of the affairs. The other discussion was the leadership. As you know, Mike, I would have put down 5 different posts on the whole leadership of Montserrat and who had the pedigree to fit into that leadership role and take Montserrat to another level. So I will start by saying I think the right government is in power. I think the right set of individuals. I would love if all. I actually predicted that I was going to give them a 9-0 slate, but as you saw, there was work that in the Braids, Cudgerhead, polling district 3 that really cost about another 150 votes for each candidate, and that's critical when you're doing your scouting and your canvassing, that you know where your swing state is. You know, I really use the word swing state, but your swing division. And one of the things I quickly realized that they would have already flipped lookout, but Braids was really a challenge, and Braids became the most voters, had the most voters in that zone. So clearly, if I had probably been there a bit earlier, maybe I could have influenced it. But I think the team did a fantastic job. I want to compliment the back room, and I can say Zenushka and Austin were champions, and I just fit in, and with Beer there as one of the true voices, he calls himself a voice. Really and truly, the campaign had all the components that necessary. We had a few silent workers, and not that I can name, but definitely those people played their part as well. We did the groundwork, as I said, just basically had we covered Braids and Cudgerhead. And as you know, it's a stronghold for PDM. So basically, it was very difficult if we did not get the entire swing in that area, that we would have gotten more than 5. But
Well,
I started by saying we were going to have 5.
okay, well, let me interject here, Greg, because yes, I mean, you're clearly on a roll and you still have that, that should I call it, that afterglow of victory. You're still buzzing. But I must say, first of all, congratulations to you and your team. Yes, you said the right government. Well, I would expect you to say that. I mean, after all, you were on their platform. At one point during the process, I started, just for my own purposes, working on a bit of a chart as to a sort of an abstract chart on some not so generally commented on aspects of the campaign. And one had to do with who's the best on stage. And I must give you credit, but also you've got to share the credit with Bear. He was fantastic on stage on your platform. And I must also say, generally speaking, for this campaign, I felt that the jingles across all of the political parties promoting their individual causes, I thought the jingles were fantastic. We should have a hit parade of jingles. Now, just going back to what you were talking about there, clearly you're a political veteran in Montserrat. You understand the lay of the land and the research and the groundwork that needs to be done. Clearly, for your group, United Alliance, all of that was done, even though you felt, well, you could have done more. The big question, however, now is delivery. Where does Montserrat go from here under this group's leadership? And what are the sort of first priority things? I know the party leader, Mr. Ruben Meade, was on with Basil Chambers and taking off a few low-hanging fruit, as he called it, including the access issue. But, Greg, the point is right now, Montserrat expects.
Mike, what I'll say to you, Montserrat has been longing. For 30 years coming up next year, we have not made the right strides. We have not reached where we should, not even 10% of where we should be. We are. And clearly, this government have their hands full and overfull. And clearly, the right person to lead the team is Ruben T. Meade. I mean, if even you look back and somebody's going to say, oh, he made some mistakes in the past. Well, he's the best man to correct the mistakes anyway. So the point is, because what we've seen is that we've had incompetence at the leadership. We've had novices at leadership. We've had people who was out of their depths in terms of leading this country. So clearly, what we have now is a combination of individuals who are skilled, who are progressive in their own personal development, and we have a leader that understands the dynamics of development, economy, and the likes. The thing I'll say to you, Mike, and I want to get this in quick in terms of this interview with you, Montserrat looks drained and dragged down. And one of the suggestions that I've spoken to the leader about, and this is where I have to withdraw to allow the team to fix themselves in place. And then I can be along with whatever is going to be happening, and in terms of strategic management and looking forward as to where we can collaborate on different aspects of the development of Montserrat. What are the quick wins? What are the medium-term wins? And this is one of the things that the manifesto impressed me with, where we had short, medium, and long-term on every aspect of what we were looking at in that manifesto, which that gave me hope and confidence that we're going to have small, medium, and long-term steps, approaches to everything.
So okay, but Greg, let me just jump right in here, because I want to, quote unquote, drag you back to what you just spoke about there, that from what you've observed, Montserrat looks drained and dragged down. Now, how do we build back from that? What do you have in mind?
Well, Mike, that's a very, very good question. And as I was saying, what my first input would be, let us give Montserrat a facelift. We it's not a massive long-term thing, but it can be a continuous thing. Once a year, and coming up, like we've just taken over this country, it's October month and now. So for the whole month of November, based on what resources are available to the government, but it won't be the government alone, based on the approach that I'm looking at. The government can say, look, we're going to do an island-wide cleanup. We're going to do a facelift. Now, let me give you an element of where the facelift, let me just go to where the facelift will matter. One, it will generate some economic activity and put money in a lot of people's pockets in regards to them controlling different areas of the island in terms of the cleanup or the facelift. But one basic thing was Taboo, who did the artwork coming down Braid's main road.
Yeah.
So I believe that not because Taboo was behind us and was with the team and believed in the team, because I mean, I don't know if he still works in the civil service or whatever as a teacher, but the fundamental point is he was instrumental in terms of the conversation about what needs to happen in Montserrat. Now, we already know Taboo is one of the greatest artists we've ever had work in Montserrat. But I think the work that he was doing on those walls coming down from Cudjoe Head right down to Cars Bay, is critical in terms of the facelift that I'm looking at. And also, we have to look at the airport. The airport is a port of entry that just needs lift. It just needs some flair with it. I'm walking around since I came back, Mike, and I'm realizing that everybody's already geared up for Christmas, and all the decorations are up. The theme parks are being put up in Birmingham and in Nottingham and in London. And that's just to show you how much movement I've made since I got back. And I'm just saying, Montserrat is only 15 square miles now. You cannot tell me that we cannot collaborate, even with the diaspora. This is where I'm saying that it's not going to be the government alone. Because what I'm thinking about, some of the elements of this can be quick and it can be continuous, but we have to be aggressive towards it. So, for instance, if we say we're going to give maybe $20,000 EC, 20,000 EC to paint the walls back and refresh them, make them brighter, even put on a few more from Braids, from Kojet to Casby. We can say, okay, how can we create with the tourist board a GoFundMe page for everybody to know input as much as we can. We're only trying to raise $20,000. You understand what I'm saying, Mike? And we have people in the UK, we have people in US, and we have people in Canada, and then across the Caribbean. You cannot tell me that our Montserrat attitude cannot raise 20,000 EC dollars or more to just do that little bit of painting. The government doesn't have to be involved. Do you understand what I mean?
Well, that sounds like a fantastic plan. I like the idea. That plan needs a bit of planning, but if you can, your team and whomever can pull it together in time for the Christmas season. I mean, the point is, I made a post the day before yesterday when I changed my Facebook page and I put there's a photo that I took when I was in Montserrat, I think 2016, of the welcome to Montserrat sign down at the port. Now, what I've seen in several places, Curacao, in St. Martin, Amsterdam, and I notice now that there's also one in Cape Verde. There are many other places. They have these massive signs of the name of the country or the name of the location, and they're used as tourist attraction. Some people might think, well, they're too generic, they're all over the place, but they serve a purpose. They serve as an attraction for
and
people to
information
come.
as well. They serve
Yes,
as information.
yes, an invitation for people to take memory photos of the place that they visited. But I like the idea of a facelift, because if you're saying that the place looks a bit drab, so not only cleanliness is next to godliness, but a clean, tidy, organized, colorful environment lifts your spirit. I mean, it really does have that psychological effect. And it's called community involvement. If everybody can get involved, if not there physically, at least make a contribution towards the funding of it, I think it's a good idea. And I think that you guys really should work to pull it off. I mean, you would have my backing on that.
And Mike, this is how we work with a government, and we work with the circumstances that we are finding ourselves in. And one of the things I'll say, and government can do so much, they can then contribute to the major works that have to be done in terms of the road, verge cutting, the village, whatever. But I'm just saying there's some key things that we can all collaborate on to say, you know what, this doesn't matter which government is in. Let us join hands and hearts together, all hands on deck, and just help uplift the whole image so that at least people can have hope and people can say, you know what, I feel good about being in Montserrat. I feel good that there's something, there's an initiative. And also, Mike, the government are just in. And when they've inherited, let's say Montserrat is a home for them, they have inherited it from a previous government or previous two governments. It's now time for them to do that facelift as well, to say, look, we don't like how this looks. Let's start with just clean it up and just we just brush up the painting. Let's just sweep the yard. Let's make sure that everything just starts to look like there's a new vibe to it. And that's what I want. I want to, and I know that the Premier is on board with it, and several ministers that I've spoken to, they're on board with it. But again, I know my role. And one of the things I looked at with RTM is a shift in the way he usually operates. He is now, and not he now. I think he was there, but the people that surrounded him before were not necessarily genuine. And I can say that point blank. What I would say is that he's more engaging in terms of the team that's around him. When I went down, Mike, I was like, you know me, I'm like a runaway train. I just want to move. You know what he said to me? He said, look, I'm not in charge of that. I'm not in charge of that. You have to speak to this person. You have to speak to that person. You have to report to the headquarters. Yeah. When I went, there was a structure in terms of how they were going to do the campaign and the rallies. I had to fit into that structure. One or two times I might have drifted off a bit because I'm so excited. I'm into it because I really am passionate about Montserrat, and the people I'm working with are the people I know that have the right team composition. That's what is good. I think all 34 candidates, Mike, I think they want to be able to do good. But having the know-how, the skill set, and the unity within a team to do it, I think the United Alliance clearly was heads and shoulders above the rest. And they know that too. I think most of them know that. Like they were saying like, oh, only 3 United or 4 United, 3 PDM and 2. Well, the MCAP story is really the one that's fascinating, really. I don't know if they're shell shocked. I don't know if they've woken up yet. But clearly, it's obvious that the people were tired. The people were not happy at all. And Mike, the big one that he spoke about was the access, which I'm happy that the Premier went on with Basil. And kudos to Basil. Basil has stayed strong. I mean, for all the things that has happened with Basil, he has stayed strong and is still a voice that is necessary and is still a man that's important in the whole communication and information dissemination area. And I think with that said, it's really good that the Premier took that time out yesterday and went with Basil and just had a chat and just outlined a few items of where he's going and what he wants to prioritize. So
well, I suspect that, sorry, Greg, I suspect that as the time moves on, we'll get something a bit more detailed. Yes, it was excellent what they did, but we'll get something a bit more detailed. I hope I get another opportunity to have a chance to chat with him as well regarding the priority issues, the issues now which must be transferred from a manifesto outline to actual policy implementation. And that is a massive undertaking facing Mr. Meade and his government. I want to come back to your idea, though, about the national facelift. I think that you're onto something there. And if it could be done, first phase in time for Christmas, because I know that on the Christmas and the festival, I know that elsewhere, and we used to have that in Montserrat before, the best village competition, or a person gets a prize, lighting, yes, for the best lighting or the best kept property, something like that. And it gives the community a buy-in, ownership into their environment, into their island, into their nation. And that sprucing up the island, that buying, I think it is something necessary. So what is the initial plan, how to structure it? Are you going to be back down to be involved in the coordination, or are you going to do that remotely?
Well, Mike, it's already been structured from my perspective. It's just how the Premier and his team or the government wants to play their role and have other, like the private sector and also the diaspora involved in basically doing this. I think he should. I hope I'm not preempting. I think he should engage the opposition in planning it and let them understand that they need to play their role as well. Because one Montserrat is not United versus PDM or MCAP. It's now one Montserrat government with an opposition team as well. So we have to engage all, and everyone has to be in agreement. Because you can't tell me the opposition don't agree that Montserrat needs a facelift. That would make them not really be genuine about their interest and involvement in the affairs of Montserrat. And I'm careful because I want to be led. I want to be led into whatever I'm doing. I want to be given the directions that I need to follow, and I want to be able to play my role in that regards. I don't want to be out here doing something and then I'm probably wasting my time and it's not being heard. And I don't think that's what's going to happen. But because of the environment that the government is taking over the country in, it might be difficult for them to focus. So clearly, as you asked, I am available to carry out the entire structuring of this and allow the different components, for instance, the tourist board and the National Trust. These are the players that I would want to get on board to because the National Trust would have plants and other things like that. The tourist board would have their ideas as to the areas that they want to focus on in terms of priority for tourism. And basically, because you still have Mike, you still have the roads, you still have the roads in terms of them being in condition for tourists to be traveling back and forth. And you still have the sand mining issue that corrupts the roads as well. So the point is, it's a big deal, meaning a massive effort is going to be needed for all hands on deck, Mike. And
I like that. Montserrat expects all hands on deck.
Yes.
I think I'll use that as a slogan somehow. But so then you're back in the UK. You were very actively and very visibly involved in the election campaign with the United Alliance. Tell us a bit about the experience. How different was this campaign? Yes, there was a lot riding on it. The fact that I think we all agreed that it was a crossroad event for Montserrat, what I call, a reset of the mindset. But what was the experience like, and how was this campaign different from others you participated in?
Well, Mike, off the bat, I can tell you this is the toughest elections I've ever seen, ever been involved with, ever surrounded myself, got myself involved in, because really it was tough, and it wore down everyone. I mean, I can tell you, I'm still knackered in terms of getting my full rest and getting back up to full speed in terms of my operations. But seriously, this was a tough election because you had 3 teams and you had 3 full teams. Then you had the independents out there doing their thing, trying to get themselves in as well. And it meant that there was a lot of burnout, a lot of burnout. And
I think Mr. Mead, I shouldn't be laughing, but he got a bit of that. I mean, yes, I mean, just observing it from a distance, you could feel the intensity.
And Mike, the difficult part of it is each candidate must sell themselves to every voter. That is where the toughest part is. You have some people say, well, look, he passed me all the time. He didn't even recognize me when he come out. And Montserrat is small now, so everybody's looking for the attention. So everybody's looking for the attention from all 34 candidates. Could you imagine each candidate have to know 3,400 plus in the voters? Is that logical? Is it possible? So clearly, why team works and why each candidate must sell the other, meaning in the teams. And that's how we had to play out. So clearly, United did a lot more work. And as you can see, the Premier himself got tired and burned out and probably dehydrated, I think, more than anything else. It's just really the campaign. And then emotions too. It could have been an emotional impact of the whole weight being lifted, or just the weight of it coming down at that point. You get my point? So I'm sure that there are a few others that might have suffered in their little way without the public eye, because as you know, from Wednesday night straight through till Saturday morning, that's what it was. It was like, it was 3 days of non-stop, 24 hours plus maybe 60 hours straight. And to go 60 hours straight, and you probably don't take time to eat, you don't consume enough fluids, it's gonna come at you. So
I think,
yeah, go ahead.
Yes, Greg, sorry. Yeah, and I think also, particularly for the United Alliance, as well as the independents as well, a lot of them coming into the political process as candidates for the first time, but particularly for the United Alliance, for Mr. Mead, how many times am I going to say particularly, for Mr. Mead to have started a new political party with a number of people who have not been actively involved in politics before, to set up the organization surrounding that, to build the team up from literally scratch, to coordinate a political campaign and all the effort and energy that requires. Yes, as I said, you felt the intensity from this end as well. Well, it's a point now of rejuvenation and continuation, and I'm linking that back to your idea of the facelift and the sprucing up, because it's now dusting yourself off one more time and heading for the future. So we are all looking forward to you being involved in coordinating this facelift campaign that you're talking about. But this can't be a one-off, is it? I mean, this is just the start, I would suspect, of an ongoing project.
Well, clearly it will be something that we will want to do continuously, and depending on how we do it this time as well. But I really think, and I know the Premier is on the path of sustainability and continuity, and making sure that we can do, for instance, the verge cutting. The grass would grow back depending on rain. I mean, every 3 months it might need to be cut and shaped and so forth. But the point is just giving it a facelift at this moment with a new government in does do a lot. It will go a long way in terms of the mood that's set for this new government. And I know everyone is on board. I think the Premier is clear that he wants to do this, but he wants to make an assessment. What is it he has? What are the resources available to him? And this is why I'm waiting. I'm going to wait on that, because he does need a little bit of conversation with his PSs, with the financial secretary, with the FCDO rep, and also probably your good friend, the governor. That she will have to have a conversation, and both of them will have to have a dialogue as to, okay, how are we going to move forward? We want to be able to respect each other. We want to be able to have our own clear path in terms of how we operate. But as a matter of Montserrat, unite on the issues that we need to unite on, and especially with FCDO based in the governor's office, it needs to be understood how we're going to approach FCDO and how we're going to approach the governor's office. So there must be a clear definition as to rules of engagement. And I think that's what the Premier is going to set first, to set the tone and the tenure, as I always say texture, but tone and texture, and of how we advance Montserrat's cause with both lines of responsibility for the governor and the line of responsibility of the Premier for the entire nation. So we have to have that understanding.
As I said, Montserrat expects, ! Following that up with Montserrat expects all hands on deck, period. Gregory Saga Willock, thank you very much for taking the time. This is not the last time we are going to speak, I'm sure.
Mike, I'm so happy to talk to you on my return, and just to let the people of Montserrat know that I'm available, and I'm going to be available, and I'm going to be involved, and I'm respectful to the team, the government, and whatever method of involvement that I'm requested. Surely I'm going to be ready and raring to go. That's not going to be an issue at all, Mike.
One and only Mr. Gregory Saga Willock. Thank you, Greg. Take care of yourself.
Thank you, too, Mike. Take care.